That morning, I only meant to drop off some waffles and a jar of honey for my daughter. But when I opened the door to that kitchen, the very home I'd spent a lifetime saving for, to give her a new beginning, I saw Maya standing at the sink, her hands buried in soapy water, her shoulders trembling like they couldn't carry one more ounce of pain. Behind her, the whole house was chaos, laughter, shouting, kids running wild, and my daughter, the owner of that house, was serving them like hired help. In that moment, I knew something had gone terribly wrong, and a father, even at 70, has to stand up when his child is being broken. My name is James Carter, and this is my true story about how a father fought for justice, not with anger, but with patience, dignity, and love. If you're listening to this right now, please like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I want to know, have you ever seen someone you love lose themselves inside their own home? Because sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't about hurting back. It's about watching the person you love rise again, strong, proud, and free, right where they once fell. It was a Saturday morning in late spring, the kind of quiet morning when the air smells like wet grass and diesel from my old pickup. 40 minutes from Columbus, I turned off the county road and onto the gravel driveway I'd built with my own hands. Her house sat there under the pale sun, small and sturdy, paint peeling a little around the porch, but still proud. I remember thinking this is the last place I ever thought I'd see my daughter cry. But she was. When I pushed open the kitchen door, the sound hit me first. Not sobs, not wailing, just the soft, broken noise a person makes when they've been crying too long to make a sound. Then I saw her. Maya was standing at the sink, hands sunk deep in gray dishwater. Her shoulders hunched like she'd been carrying someone else's sins all morning. Her hair was tied back in a messy knot, and the back of her shirt was damp from tears she probably wiped away with wet hands. And behind her, the rest of them. The living room stretched out in that open-plan layout I once thought looked so warm and modern. Now it looked like a cheap motel after a storm. Delilah, her mother-in-law, was sitting like a queen in the armchair, sipping coffee, snapping orders between bites of toast. Tiana and Rochelle, the sisters, sprawled across the couch with their feet on Maya's oak coffee table, the one I carved myself out of reclaimed barnwood. Nate and Brianna were in the corner arguing about what channel to watch, their two kids running wild across the floor with sticky jelly hands. Everywhere I looked, there was mess. Plates on the counter, crumbs on the rug, a half-empty jar of strawberry jam smeared across the table like blood. And my daughter, my only child, was moving around them like hired help. "Maya, where's the sugar?" one of the sisters called. "Maya, these eggs are cold," Delilah added, her tone leaving no room for hesitation. "Make me another batch, and don't forget the salt this time." "No, please." "No, thank you." Maya murmured something I couldn't hear. Her voice was so thin it sounded like it might snap. I froze in the doorway, my hand still on the frame, watching her move, mechanical, small, shrinking with every step. Her wrists were red and raw from hot water. Her fingers, once proud and careful, looked cracked and swollen. I could see the small tremor in her right hand as she reached for another plate. That was the moment my stomach turned cold. I had seen exhaustion before. Years on the road taught me what real tired looks like. But this was something else. This was defeat, quiet, practiced defeat. Delilah finally noticed me. She turned her head slow, her smile smooth, and practiced the kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. "Well, Mr. Carter," she said sweetly. "What a surprise. Didn't know you were coming by today." I stepped inside, slow and steady, trying to keep the fury out of my voice. "It's my daughter's house," I said. "I don't need an invitation." Delilah gave a little laugh, one of those laughs that sounds polite but tastes like vinegar. "Oh, of course," she said, settling deeper into the chair. "Although technically it's the family's house now, my son and your daughter, husband and wife. What belongs to one belongs to the other." That line. I swear I felt my pulse climb all the way to my ears. "Where's Darius?" I asked. "Out with his daddy," she said casually. "They went to look at some landmen's business, you know. He'll be back for lunch. And they left you all here." "Naturally," she said, smiling wider.
We've been staying since Easter. My son invited us, of course.
Plenty of room here, and we're family. Why not share what's ours, ours? The word hit harder than any insult could have, because I knew damn well whose name was on that deed. I made sure of it myself. The Maya Carter. Living trust signed, sealed, protected. Sasha. I started to say her name out of habit, then stopped. Maya, I said quietly, come here a minute. She turned startled like a deer caught in headlights. I'm busy, Daddy, she whispered. Let me finish this. Let someone else handle it, I said, my voice firmer. Before she could answer, Delilah laughed a short, sharp sound that made every hair on my arm stand up. Oh, don't be dramatic, Mr. Carter. She's just helping with breakfast. That's what good wives do. The room fell silent except for the sound of the faucet. I could feel my jaw lock. I looked around the chaos, the crumbs, the greasy plates stacked high, and then back at my daughter's thin frame, trembling over a sink full of dirty dishes. I took a deep breath, the kind you take before saying something you can't unsay. Maya, I said slowly, come outside with me, now. She froze, eyes wide. I could tell she was scared, scared of disobeying them, scared of embarrassing someone, scared of everything. But she dried her hands anyway. When she walked past me, I saw the marks on her wrists clearer under the kitchen light, small, angry circles where skin had rubbed raw against the edge of the sink. And then, right as we were about to step out the door, Delilah's voice cut through the room again. Mr. Carter, she called sweetly. You might want to remember, this is a married couple's house. You don't have much say here anymore. I turned, looked straight at her and smiled. Not the polite kind. The kind that meant something was about to change. We'll see about that, I said. Then I held the door open for my daughter and we stepped out into the backyard, the only part of that property still untouched by their hands. We sat out back on that old swing I built the first week I bought the place. The wood creaked under our weight like it was listening. I used to sit there and picture Maya's laughter filling this yard, her kids playing, a dog barking somewhere in the distance. But that morning, all I could hear was her crying. Quiet, tired, breaking. She told me everything. 18 years of marriage that had slowly bled her dry. No bruises, no broken bones, just the kind of abuse that hides behind polite smiles and locked bedroom doors. Her ex-husband Louis never raised a hand. He just raised his silence. Weeks of not speaking to her, years of calling her useless, of making her believe she'd ruined his life. When she finally found the courage to leave, he took everything. The house, the savings, even the car I gave her when she turned 30. She came back to me with 2 suitcases and a broken soul, and I was too used to being gone. 30 years driving long-haul trucks across this country, always chasing miles, never home long enough to fix what was breaking in my own family. I wasn't there when her mother died. I wasn't there when Maya's first marriage started to rot. I thought sending money made me a father. Turns out all it made me was a provider. So 2 years ago I promised myself I'd make it right. When I retired, I found this old foreclosure listing a small ranch house sitting on 5 acres just outside Newark. $95,000, half-caved-in porch, busted water line, but solid bones. Folks said I was crazy. But I saw more than a fixer-upper. I saw peace. I cashed out my savings, took a small loan from the credit union, and bought it outright in her name only. Set up the Maya Carter Living Trust just to make sure no one could ever take it from her. I didn't even list myself as co-owner. I filed a homestead affidavit, had our attorney Jenkins notarize it, and kept copies locked in my desk. And before her wedding, I even convinced her to sign a light prenuptial agreement with Darius, the new man. Just a few lines, nothing fancy, stating that this property would remain hers no matter what. It wasn't about mistrust. It was about protection. About learning from my own mistakes, from her first marriage, from life itself. For a while it worked. She smiled again. She planted tomatoes. She started baking on weekends, sending me pictures of pies cooling on the windowsill. It felt like redemption. Then came them. It started 17 days ago.
Delilah Darius's mother called saying her landlord had raised the rent. Just for a week, she said. Maya hesitated, but Darius said, "She's my mama," so she said yes. 3 days later, Tiana, the younger sister, showed up dragging 2 suitcases saying she'd fought with her boyfriend and just needed a place to clear her head. Day 4. Rochelle arrived, the middle sister, claiming her apartment was under renovation. By day 6, Nate, the oldest brother, rolled in with his wife Brianna and their 2 kids saying they needed some fresh air in the country. And just like that, 7 extra bodies, 7 extra mouths, all living, eating, showering, sleeping under the roof I built for peace. Groceries went from $150 a week to over $140 in 12 days. I saw the receipts. Maya kept every one. Electric bills spiked. Hot water ran out by noon because Delilah took 40-minute showers every morning for her arthritis. The pantry looked like a storm had hit it. The yard was full of trash toys, cigarette butts. Maya had been sleeping on the living room sofa because Delilah said the master bed helped her back pain. And Darius. He said nothing, just kept repeating, "Family comes first." I listened to her talk and every word felt like a nail. "Maybe I'm the problem," she whispered. "Maybe I don't know how family works. You raised me alone. Maybe I never learned." That hit me like a freight truck. All those years I'd been gone on the road in different states, missing birthdays, Christmas dinners, first heartbreaks. It came back and sat heavy on my chest. Maybe I did fail her once, but I wasn't about to fail her twice. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the tremor in my voice. "Maya," I said, "you listen to me. You're not wrong. What's yours is yours. That house is yours. I made damn sure of it. But they said I don't care what they said." I cut her off. "I talked to Attorney Jenkins myself. That property's in your name under your trust. It's protected by law, by affidavit, by everything I could do short of building a damn fence around it." She looked at me, tears still wet on her cheeks, like a child who wants to believe but doesn't dare. I stood up, joints aching, heart pounding. "I'm going to Jenkins's office first thing Monday," I said. "We're going through every document again, line by line. I'll pull the trust papers, the deed, the prenup. I'll make sure no one can twist it." Then I paused and something old and cold moved through me, instinct. "I want you to keep the receipts," I said. "All of them. Groceries, bills, anything they've used. And the footage from the doorbell camera, save it. If it comes to it, I'll call the sheriff and make it official trespassing." She blinked, surprised. "You'd do that?" I met her eyes. "You think I built that swing out here for you to sit and cry on?" From the porch above, a voice sliced through the air like a whip. "Maya." Delilah shouted, her voice dripping with entitlement. "When you're done sulking, I want chicken pot pie for lunch. Hot this time, not that half-warm mess from yesterday. And tell your daddy to stop meddling in family business." My daughter's face turned pale. I could see fear crawl across it like an old bruise coming back to life. I turned my head toward the house, squinting up at that woman leaning over the railing like she owned the sky. "Family business," I muttered. "We'll see about that." And right then I knew this wasn't just about food or respect or manners. This was about territory, about a woman who thought she'd moved into a house when in truth she'd stepped into the wrong man's promise. And I was about to remind her of that one way or another. When we walked back into that house, the noise hit like static. Laughter, TV, blaring, forks clinking. Nobody even noticed us at first, that's how sure they were of their place. I didn't say a word. I just walked straight across the room, planted myself right in front of the television, and grabbed the remote off the coffee table. Click, silence. Every head turned. "Hey," Tiana barked. "We were watching that." "Not anymore," I said, voice steady. "This conversation's overdue." Delilah sat up, lips tight, eyes sharp. "Excuse me," she said. "You can't just, I cut her off, and I am." I looked around the room, slow, deliberate, the way a man looks over land he owns. "This isn't a visit anymore," I said. "This," I waved a hand at the plates, the luggage, the half-packed boxes, "is an occupation. And it ends right now." Rochelle scoffed. "What are you gonna do, old man? Call the cops?" We're family. No, I said calmly. I'm going to revoke your license. The room froze. Blank stares. They didn't understand, not yet, so I spelled it out. Under Ohio law, every person inside a private home is there under permission, what they call a license to occupy. When the owner revokes that license, that means you've got 60 minutes to leave before it turns into trespassing. And trust me, you don't want that charge on your record. Tiana laughed too loud, too forced. That's some made-up nonsense from YouTube, Grandpa. I didn't even look at her. I just pulled my phone from my pocket and hit speaker. The line rang once before a warm voice answered. Jenkins Law Office. This is Attorney Harold Jenkins. Harold. It's James Carter, I said evenly. You remember the living trust we drafted for my daughter Maya? Of course, Jenkins replied, his voice clear through the speaker. Is there a problem? Not yet, I said, just confirming that property was acquired by my daughter before marriage, held solely in her trust. Correct. She's the only owner of record. Every face in that room shifted. And under Ohio law, I continued, if non-owners are residing in that property without a lease or consent and the owner revokes permission. That's criminal trespass, Jenkins said without hesitation. Police can remove them. Husband or not, he can't override the trust. I looked straight at Delilah when I spoke next. You heard him. You've got 60 minutes to pack. After that, the sheriff gets involved. Delilah's face tightened. Her lipstick looked too red against the sudden pallor. You wouldn't dare, she hissed. My son pays the bills here. Does he? I asked. Maya, show them. My daughter reached into a drawer, pulled out a small stack of folded receipts. Her hands still shook, but there was a glint in her eyes I hadn't seen in weeks. She placed the papers on the coffee table. Giant Eagle Groceries paid with my debit card, she said, voice trembling but clear. $327 $190 and $241. Gas my Zelle. Electric auto pay from my checking. Water, too. Darius hasn't paid a single thing since they moved in. Tiana crossed her arms, rolling her eyes. So what, you want a medal for shopping? Rochelle chuckled under her breath. Man, you old folks really love drama. That was the moment I felt the old dangerous calm settle over me, the kind that comes before a storm. Before I could speak, there was a knock at the front door. 3 solid thuds. I turned, half expecting the sheriff already, but when I opened the door, there stood Earl Watkins, my next-door neighbor for 20 years. 80 if he's a day white hair under a faded Vietnam vet cap, one hand on a carved oak cane. Morning, James, he said, eyes scanning the scene behind me. Everything all right here? Just about to be, I said. He nodded, then leaned slightly on the cane, heard the noise all the way across the pasture, figured I'd drop by. If you need a witness for anything official, I can stand right here. Delilah's face went rigid. Her jaw worked like she was chewing glass. She tried to recover, folding her arms. There's no need for neighbors to get involved, she said, her voice sugar and poison all at once. Ma'am, Earl said, polite but firm. When somebody's home is being overrun, it's everyone's business. For a second, no one spoke, just the low hum of the refrigerator and the clock ticking over the stove. Then Delilah pushed herself up from the couch, back straight, eyes burning. My son, she said coldly, pays for this house. You think this roof stands on her money? I smiled, slow and quiet, the kind of smile that isn't joy, just certainty. You know, Delilah, there's one thing I learned on the road, I said. People lie. Paper doesn't. Maya unfolded the last page from the envelope I'd had Jenkins prepare 2 years ago, the notarized trust certificate, her name printed bold, the Maya Carter Living Trust. Rochelle leaned forward, squinting. That doesn't mean anything, she muttered. It means I said every inch of this house, the walls, the porch, the ground under your feet, belongs to her. You are here because she allowed it, and now she doesn't. Silence spread like smoke. I took a step forward, voice lowering. You've got 55 minutes now. Start packing. Delilah opened her mouth, maybe to curse, maybe to plead, but she didn't get the chance. The sound of the front door bursting open cut through everything. Bam! Two figures filled the doorway. Darius and his father, Horace Dusty Boots, faces tight. Darius's hand still on the knob, eyes darting across the room, stopping when they saw the pile of luggage I'd placed dead center in the living room. He frowned. What the hell's going on here? Horace stepped in behind him, nearly tripping over a suitcase. And there we were, me, my daughter, her husband, his parents, all in one room, the air thick enough to chew. I straightened my back, my voice calm, almost gentle. What's going on, son, I said, is called revocation. And you just walked into the middle of it. Darius's voice cracked through the air before the dust from the door had even settled. What the hell is this? Dad, he snapped, his eyes flashing from the luggage to me. You're making a damn circus out of my house. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't need to. Watch your tone, son. This isn't your house. The hell it isn't, he barked back. I live here. I pay the bills. I built the shelves in that pantry with my own hands. This is my home just as much as hers. I reached into my jacket pocket and unfolded a piece of paper, thick, cream-colored embossed seal, the copy I'd brought from my file drawer. I handed it to him like a slow verdict. That right there, I said, is the deed of trust. The Maya Carter Living Trust, executed June 3rd, 2023. Read it out loud if you want. He didn't take it. Horace did. The old man's hands were steady, his face unreadable as his eyes scanned the text. The room had gone so quiet we could hear the ticking of the stove clock again. Finally, he looked up, not at me, not at Maya, but at his son. She's the sole trustee, he said softly. You're not on this, Darius. That hit like a silent punch. Darius blinked hard, jaw working. That can't be right. We're married. That's not fair. Fair, I asked, still calm. Fair is her name on the title because she earned her peace. Fair is you respecting what you didn't build. He looked at Maya, desperate now. Tell him, baby. Tell him I help. Tell him. But Maya's face had changed. Something in her eyes had settled, not anger, not fear anymore, just truth. She took a step forward, voice small but steady. 16 nights, Darius. I've been sleeping on the couch 16 nights while your mother slept in our bed. I've cooked 3 meals a day for 8 people. I've spent $140 on food on your family while you told me to stop complaining. Her words landed heavy. The kids had gone quiet in the corner. Even the TV, still blank, seemed to listen. Darius opened his mouth, but nothing came out. He just stared at her as if the woman standing there was a stranger he'd never met. That's when Delilah stood up, smoothing her skirt, her smile sharp again. Enough of this nonsense, she said. If we're talking numbers, I've got a few of my own. She reached into her purse, pulled out a folded paper, and slapped it onto the coffee table with the flair of a magician revealing her trick. That she announced is an invoice. $2,800. For repairs and maintenance we had done while staying here. My handyman license, by the way, replaced a leaking faucet, patched the roof, and fixed those rotten porch steps. So maybe before throwing us out, you all should remember we've invested in this house too. Her voice dripped with triumph, like she'd finally found her weapon. But I could smell it from a mile away, the stink of a setup. I picked up the paper, turned it over, scanning the print. No letterhead, no company logo. Just a handwritten note and a vague signature that looked like it was drawn with a dull pen. You said he's licensed, I asked, holding it up. Of course, she replied too quickly. Funny, I said, no contractor license number, no tax ID, no proof of payment, no check copy, no receipt. You might as well have printed this in the kitchen. Her eyes flickered a tiny twitch, but I saw it. You're not the one to question me, she hissed. This is family business. No, I said evenly. This is forgery and manipulation, and you're doing it badly. Her cheeks flushed red. You think you're smarter than everyone just because you read a few legal documents? No, I said, just old enough to recognize a scam when I smell one. For a moment the air was thick, no one moved. Even Darius looked confused now, glancing between us like a man watching his life slip through his fingers.
Then Delilah played her final card. She pulled her phone from her purse, tapped a few times,
then turned the screen toward Maya. A PDF glowed on the glass, official-looking, with the county seal faintly visible. "You want proof?" Delilah said, her smile spreading. "Here's something real. It's a quitclaim deed. I filled it out myself this morning and submitted it online. All it needs is your signature, Maya. You just sign here." She pointed at the blank line, "and it transfers this house into joint family ownership. To me, Delilah King, and to you. No lawyers, no drama, just family unity." Maya froze, eyes darting to me. Darius blinked, startled. "Mom, what are you doing?" "Fixing what should have been fixed long ago," she said smoothly. "Protecting our family from outsiders who think they can dictate how we live." I could feel my pulse thudding, slow and heavy. My fingers itched to snatch that phone and throw it through the damn wall, but I didn't move. I just looked her dead in the eye. "You just tried to record a fraudulent transfer of property," I said quietly, "on a trust asset. That's not a family gesture, Delilah. That's a felony." Her smile flickered for the first time. "Oh, please," she said, her tone slipping. "It's just paperwork." "Exactly," I replied. "And paperwork is how people go to prison." Horace cleared his throat, voice low. "Delilah." She ignored him. Maya's breathing quickened beside me. Her hands trembled, not from fear this time, but from fury barely contained. Darius reached for the phone, his voice breaking. "Mom, stop! You can't just be quiet," she snapped. "I'm doing this for you." I stepped forward, slow, steady, like a man walking through a storm he's already survived once. "No, Delilah," I said, "you're doing this to him." Her head whipped toward me, eyes blazing. And before another word could be spoken, the room filled with the dull chime of an email notification on her phone, the county recorder's auto-reply. "Your submission has been received for review." Maya gasped. Delilah's smile returned, thin and triumphant. "Too late," she whispered. "It's already filed." I didn't yell. I didn't curse. I just took out my phone again and hit redial. "Jenkins Law Office." The voice came through, calm as ever. "Harold." "It's Carter again," I said, trying to keep my tone even. "Delilah King just filed a quitclaim deed online in her name and my daughter's. Can that thing even stand?" There was a pause, just long enough to hear his disbelief. "Absolutely not," Jenkins said crisp. "A quitclaim has no effect without the grantor's verified signature, and it must be notarized. If your daughter hasn't signed it, it's invalid on arrival. Forward me whatever file she submitted." "Done," I said. "And Harold, send something official. I want it in writing." I could hear him typing. "I'll email a notice of revocation and a no-guest order to you and Maya within 10 minutes, he said. "It'll state clearly that any occupants not named on the trust are revoked of license to remain. If they refuse to leave, call the sheriff and file a trespass report. You'll be standing on solid ground, James." "Thank you," I said quietly and hung up. The room was dead still. Even Delilah had stopped smirking. She could tell the air had changed. I scrolled through my phone, found the sheriff's non-emergency line, and pressed call. The dispatcher's voice was warm, efficient. Licking County Sheriff's Office. "What's your situation, sir?" "Private residence," I said. "Owner revoking occupancy. Non-tenants refusing to vacate. I'd like a deputy present to keep the peace." 20 minutes later, gravel crunched in the driveway. Through the kitchen window, I saw the white SUV with gold lettering, Licking County Sheriff. Out stepped Deputy Shonda Wells, tall, broad-shouldered, maybe early 40s, with a calm face that said she'd seen enough family meltdowns to last a lifetime. She walked in, badge shining on her vest. "Good afternoon," she said, glancing around. "Who's the homeowner?" Maya stepped forward, her voice small but steady. "I am."
"All right," Wells said. "What's going on?" I handed her the printout Jenkins had just emailed. "Attorney says these folks' permission to stay has been revoked. No lease, no rent paid. They were asked to leave. They refused." Wells scanned the document, nodding. "Okay, so for clarity," she looked at the crowd. "Is anyone here paying rent or holding a written tenancy agreement?" Silence.
Anybody contributing to utilities or property taxes. Still nothing except the sound of Tiana chewing gum. Wells sighed softly. All right then, that means you're guests, not tenants. And under Ohio Revised Code 291121, refusal to leave after notice from the owner qualifies as criminal trespass. I'm not here to arrest anyone. If you leave peacefully, no harm done. But if you're still here after the next 60 minutes, it becomes a chargeable offense. Delilah shot up from the couch, red-faced. This is ridiculous. You can't kick a mother out of her son's house. Wells didn't even blink. Ma'am, it's not your son's house, it's hers, she said, nodding toward Maya, and the law says she decides who stays under this roof. You people don't understand, Delilah shouted. We've been taking care of this place, my handyman. Ma'am, Wells interrupted, tone firm but polite. I don't need the backstory. You've got 60 minutes to gather your belongings and clear the premises. Please avoid conflict while doing so. Tiana whipped out her phone, hitting record. Look at this, she sneered. Old man bullying women, y'all see this. Internet's gonna love it. Earl Watkins, still standing by the kitchen doorway with his cane, stepped forward. Miss, I suggest you stop filming in someone else's home unless you want to be the next exhibit in court. He stood there, solid as a monument, calm as an oak tree. His presence filled the room like gravity. Rochelle scoffed, grabbing a trash bag. This is insane, she muttered, shoving clothes inside. You people act like this is a damn hotel. Delilah paced, muttering curses under her breath. Her son stood in the middle, hands on his head, eyes darting between his mother and his wife. Darius looked broken. Mom, just pack, he said finally, voice low. Please. Don't you dare take their side, Delilah snapped, spinning toward him. I raised you better than this. Horace finally spoke, his voice rough with weariness. Enough, Delilah, he said. You've done enough damage. She froze, staring at him like he'd just betrayed her, but Horace didn't look away. The silence that followed was heavier than any argument. Deputy Wells checked her watch. 50 minutes left, she said quietly. Let's move along. Delilah stormed off toward the bedroom, slamming doors. The sisters followed, grumbling. The sound of zippers, hangers, and trash bags filled the house. Every noise was a kind of surrender.
Maya stood near the kitchen island, breathing in shallow gasps, her hand gripping the edge of the counter like she might fall. I laid a hand on her shoulder. You did good, baby, I said softly. You stood your ground. She nodded once, eyes glistening but steady. Then her phone buzzed on the counter. A notification banner lit up the screen. Payment past due, Spectrum Internet account. She frowned, swiping it open. Then her face went pale. Daddy, she whispered. Look at this. The bill showed her name, her email, but the service address wasn't here. It was the apartment Darius used to rent before they married, the one his brother had moved into last year. It's charging my account, she said, her voice trembling. The internet's still in my name, but the billing address was switched. Last week. I felt that old cold anger rise again, the kind that starts low in your gut and climbs. He moved your name to their place, I said slowly. They're using your credit. Even now. The sounds of packing stopped behind us. Every head turned. Maya looked up, eyes wet but fierce now. Then this time she said quietly, I'll be the one to cut the cord. And before anyone could speak, she picked up her phone, scrolled down to disconnect service, and pressed confirm. The house went silent. No more Wi-Fi, no more excuses. Outside, the sheriff's car lights flashed once in the sunlight, a quiet reminder that the law had finally arrived. Maya's hand was still trembling as she stared at the screen. Daddy, she whispered. I never opened that account. I swear I didn't. Her voice cracked in a way that made my chest tighten. She wasn't just scared, she was violated. Not just in her home, but in her name. I leaned over, took the phone, and scrolled through the email. The service date was 2 weeks old, days before I'd even shown up at the Acreage. Same name, same social security suffix, but a different address, Darius's old apartment. I looked up, scanning the room.
Delilah was stuffing clothes into a plastic bag with sharp, jerky movements. Rochelle was near the counter pretending to text. Brianna was helping one of the kids zip up a backpack, eyes darting everywhere but at me. Something was off. I could feel it. Who set up this internet account? I asked quietly. No one answered. It wasn't Maya, I said louder now. So who did it? Brianna froze just a heartbeat too long. Then she tried to recover. Maybe it auto-renewed, she muttered. You know how these companies are. They just roll things over. Into someone else's apartment, I asked. Nice trick. The silence stretched. I could almost hear the hum of the refrigerator again. Then Brianna made the mistake of speaking one sentence too many. Rochelle said it'd be temporary, she blurted out. We just needed Wi-Fi for the kids until the setup came through. She said Maya wouldn't even notice. Her hand flew to her mouth. Too late. Rochelle shot her a glare sharp enough to cut glass. You talk too damn much, she hissed. I turned to Rochelle slowly. You used my daughter's personal info. She crossed her arms, trying to look unbothered. It was just a favor. We were family, and she said she didn't mind. No, she didn't, I said quietly. She didn't even know. Rochelle rolled her eyes. Oh, please. It's not like we stole anything. We used her store card too for some baby clothes. We were going to pay it back next month. That was it. The line had been crossed clean and deep. I reached for my phone, thumbed the power button, and opened the camera. One by one, I snapped photos, the email on Maya's screen, the billing address, the timestamp, the card alert in her inbox. You're not paying it back, I said calmly. You're going to pay for it. Maya's voice broke. Daddy, I didn't even know they had my store card. It must have been left in your purse, I finished for her. When they got comfortable here. Rochelle tried to laugh it off. You're making this a big deal over nothing. Identity theft isn't nothing. I said, my voice like gravel. It's a felony, and I've driven enough miles in this country to know paper trails don't lie. I took a deep breath, opened my email, and hit forward. To Harold Jenkins at Jenkins Law Firm.
Subject evidence, fraudulent use, identity theft. Attachments, photos, screenshots, receipts. Within minutes, Jenkins replied, Harold Jenkins, James, document everything. Have Maya sign an FTC identity theft affidavit immediately. Freeze her credit at all 3 bureaus. Experian, Equifax, TransUnion. I'll file a report with the county and draft a civil protection order in case the Kings retaliate. This goes beyond trespass, now it's criminal misrepresentation. I read it out loud. The weight of every word landed like nails being hammered into a coffin. Then I turned to Darius. He looked hollow eyes, rimmed red hands hanging limp. His own mother was in the next room still muttering curses while packing, and now he had to face what she'd done. Son, I said quietly, this right here is the line. Every man comes to it once in his life, the line between blood and honor, between looking away or standing up. What you do next tells the world which kind you are. He stared at me for a long time, then he turned to Maya. Tears in his eyes, he said barely above a whisper, I'm sorry. I swear I didn't know. I'll fix this. I'll make it right. Maya didn't answer. She just nodded, eyes wet, lips pressed tight, the kind of silence that hurts more than any word could. Outside, the cicadas had started up a low buzzing under the weight of evening. Inside, the house smelled like cardboard and sweat and endings. Earl Watkins stood by the door, still arms folded over his cane like some weathered guardian carved from stone. Deputy Wells had stepped outside to speak into her radio. I saw her pause, tilt her head, then bring the mic closer to her shoulder. She came back and her face slightly tense. Mr. Carter, she said, we've just been notified there's been a temporary filing across your name, a protection order, filed about 15 minutes ago. I blinked. Against me, yes, sir, filed by a Ms. Delilah King. Claims of threat and intimidation. There's a hearing scheduled for tomorrow morning at 9:00 a.m. Delilah's voice suddenly rang out from the porch, shrill and triumphant. You hear that, old man? I filed a temporary protection order.
You can't touch us now. Let's see you try to throw us out, Deputy Wells sighed, rubbing her temple. It's a civil filing, sir, she explained. It doesn't mean she wins. It just means a judge has to review it. But until the hearing, I'd advise no contact, no confrontation. Let the paperwork do the fighting. Delilah's laugh echoed from the porch like metal scraping against stone. Tiana started recording again, whispering, "Now this is content." I took a slow breath, forcing down the anger rising in my chest. They think filing a false order makes them safe, I said softly. But what it really does is put perjury on paper. I turned to Maya, put my hand on her shoulder. Baby, tonight, we document everything. Every message, every bill, every false claim. And tomorrow morning, we walk into that courthouse together. Calm, clean, and lawful. Maya nodded, the first spark of resolve returning to her eyes. Outside, the sunset threw long bars of orange light across the floor, like the stripes of a prison cell finally opening. Lines crossed, I whispered. Now it's time to draw ours. The courthouse smelled of disinfectant and burnt coffee. 8:45 a.m. Licking County Courthouse. The kind of building that's seen more broken families than weddings. Maya sat beside me on the wooden bench, hands folded tight, her knuckles white. She hadn't slept much. I hadn't either. Delilah was across the hall, whispering fast to Tiana and Rochelle. They were all dressed like they were headed to Sunday service, pearls lipstick, the whole act polished for the judge. Only Horace looked tired, like a man who'd been awake for a decade straight. When the bailiff called our case, we walked into that small hearing room. No jury. Just a judge and her 60s kind eyes and the face of someone who's seen every version of human mess. Delilah started first. She didn't waste a second. "Your Honor," she began, voice trembling just enough to sound rehearsed. This old man, burst into my son's home yesterday, yelling, threatening, waving his phone in our faces.
My daughter-in-law Maya is unstable. She has episodes. We feared for our safety. I filed that protection order because I didn't know what he'd do next. Her voice cracked at the end. Fake tears. Tiana sniffed loudly beside her for dramatic effect. The judge watched quietly, pen tapping once against the desk. "And your proof, Ms. King?" she asked. Delilah fumbled with a stack of printed screenshots, blurry images from Tiana's phone. A freeze frame of me standing near the couch, one hand raised mid-sentence. Another of the sheriff's cruiser parked outside. "That's him," Delilah said. "Look at his face, he's furious." The judge studied the photo, unimpressed. "I see an elderly man talking," she said. "Do you have any evidence of threats, verbal or physical?" "He said he'd throw us out. From his daughter's property." Delilah hesitated. "Well, yes, but thank you. Sit down." The tone had changed, slightly, firmly. I felt Maya's hand twitch beside mine. I covered it with mine, steady. The judge turned to me. "Mr. Carter, you may respond." I stood slowly, clearing my throat. The room smelled faintly of cheap perfume and old paper. "Your Honor, I'm 70 years old. I don't yell much anymore. It wastes breath I don't have. But what you see here," I pulled a small USB drive from my jacket pocket, handed it to the bailiff, "is the doorbell video from Maya's property yesterday morning. You'll see Mrs. King here ordering my daughter to fetch coffee, to clean floors, to serve breakfast, while her family sprawled across the furniture like they owned the place." The judge nodded to the clerk. The screen on her desk flickered to life. We all watched it together. Delilah's voice barking orders. Tiana shouting across the kitchen. Maya moving like a shadow, silent, obedient. And me standing at the threshold, hands folded, jaw tight. The judge's lips pressed into a thin line. I also submitted copies of the grocery receipts, I continued. $140 in 2 weeks, all charged to Maya's debit card. Photographs of her hands cracked red, swollen from scrubbing dishes. The call logs to my attorney and the sheriff time-stamped. The trust deed in Maya's name only. The notice of revocation sent by counsel before the sheriff arrived. I paused.
Every document in that folder verifies the same truth: these people weren't tenants. They were intruders. Deputy Wells testified next. Her voice was calm, professional. "I was present at the property," she said. There were no threats of violence from Mr. Carter. He conducted himself appropriately. The only raised voices came from the petitioners. Then Earl took the stand. He leaned on his cane, hat in hand. "I was there too, ma'am," he said, his deep baritone steady. "Nobody laid a hand on anyone. That old man kept it cooler than I could have. All he did was stand up for his daughter." The courtroom went quiet after that. Delilah tried to interject once, but the judge raised a hand. "I've heard enough, Ms. King." She turned toward her clerk. "For the record, this court finds insufficient evidence of any credible threat or harassment by Mr. Leonard Carter. The temporary protection order is hereby dismissed." Delilah's face drained of color. Rochelle muttered something under her breath. The judge continued, voice firm but not unkind. "Furthermore, based on the testimony and documentation presented, I am issuing a consent decree. The King family, Delilah, Tiana, Rochelle, Nate, and Brianna, are prohibited from entering or approaching the property of Maya Carter without written invitation. Any contact must be in writing through email only. Any attempt to alter or claim ownership interest in said property is null and void without notarized consent from Ms. Carter herself." Her gavel came down once sharp. "That will be all." Maya exhaled for the first time in hours. Her shoulders fell like someone had lifted a mountain off them. I put my arm around her, felt her pulse steady under my hand. As we stepped into the hallway, the morning light from the tall windows spilled across the tile like forgiveness. Delilah stormed past us without a word. Tiana followed, phone still recording, though her hands shook. Rochelle muttered, "This ain't over," and disappeared behind the heavy doors. Then I felt a hand on my elbow. It was Horace King. He looked smaller in daylight. The swagger gone, the years showing. He spoke low, almost ashamed. "Len," he said, eyes on the floor. "I knew about the quitclaim. Delilah filed it that morning. Didn't tell me till after. I tried to talk her down, but you know her. She doesn't listen." I studied his face, the regret carved deep, the exhaustion of a man who'd been dragged through too many storms. "I'm tired, Len," he said softly. "She's been like this for years, controlling everyone she touches. I should have stopped her sooner." I nodded slowly. "You still can," I said. "Start by telling the truth." He looked up, eyes glassy. Maybe I just did. We shook hands, two old men, both worn, both haunted by the women we'd loved and failed to protect in different ways. As Maya and I stepped out onto the courthouse steps, the wind hit cold and clean. She looked up at the pale October sky and whispered, "It's finally over." I didn't answer right away, because I knew things like this are never truly over. They just go quiet for a while. The house felt different when we pulled back into the gravel. Not because the paint had changed or the sun sat in a new place, but because a weight had shifted. Where yesterday there'd been a storm, today there was a slow, brittle kind of quiet, the kind that comes after something breaks and you've swept the pieces into neat piles. Deputy Wells lingered on the driveway like a calm mountain. She didn't come in. She didn't need to. Her presence was the law, folded into the yard, gentle, visible enough to keep fists unclenched and tempers from flaring. She gave Delilah a look that said, "This is your last chance to act like a decent human being," then retreated to her cruiser to finish paperwork. That was all the oversight we needed. They packed like people who think they still own the right to leave a trace. Boxes, trash bags, a TV, and odd pieces of furniture, some bought, some stolen, some claimed as family heirlooms. Tiana carried a brass lamp with an ornate base like she was auditioning for a heist movie. She tucked it under her arm and slid toward the doorway, trying to look casual. Maya saw it. She didn't shout. She didn't race across the room like a storm. She walked up slow, as if stepping into a better-known dream, and her voice was soft but steel-sharp when she said, "Leave that." Tiana froze, the lamp tucked like contraband under her jacket. "It's just a lamp," she muttered, but there was that quick flicker of guilt there. Too quick. "Really?" Maya reached into the cardboard box on the counter and pulled out a folded receipt. "This is from last September at an antique shop downtown. I paid $10 cash. It's mine." She laid the paper on the lamp like a claim stake. Tiana's face went a color I didn't have a name for. She let the lamp clatter back into the box as if the sound was punishment.
It was small moments like that, receipts, labels, names on bank statements that stitched the truth back together.
People assume property is only about things you can touch. But paper matters. Names matter. Paper and signatures are the bones of who owns what in this country. Darius moved through the house like a man walking a tightrope. One step, then another, arms full of someone else's shirts. He kept glancing at his mother, glancing at Maya, like he was reading two different maps and couldn't decide which road was safe. He seemed smaller than the day he promised to love her. Marriage had not made him braver, only more torn. At one point, Horace, quiet, weighed by the fight in his eyes, came up to Maya with his hat in his hands. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in a week. "Maya," he said, voice low, honest in a way that unsettled the room. "I should have spoken sooner. I'm sorry. I let things go. I thought keeping peace meant staying out of it. That was wrong." Maya's shoulders relaxed a little. The hurt didn't vanish, but something like understanding, hard-earned and gritty, moved through her. She nodded. "Thank you, Mr. King," she said. "That helps." I watched Darius stand there, jaw working. I stepped up beside him, and when he looked at me, I kept my voice simple. "Son, I said the day you married is the day your new family began. You can't keep both on the same leash. Something gives. You choose who you protect." He swallowed and turned to Maya. I could see the fight in his eyes, the fight between habit and honor. "Mom," he said finally. "Oh, quiet. You need to go." Delilah's reaction was immediate outrage, like a struck chord. "You'll regret this," she spat, voice thick with venom. "You turn on your blood, you'll find out what family means. I swear on my mother." She left the threat hanging like smoke. Then she turned, palms pushing at the packed bags, and swept toward the driveway with Tiana and Rochelle in tow.
Nate and Brianna herded the kids into the truck, which grumbled to life like it was glad to be free of that house. Horace stood for a moment on the porch, watching the scene, then climbed into the passenger seat of Delilah's car. He didn't argue. He didn't yell. He looked at Darius one last time, and his eyes were full of 1,000 tired things. The engine coughed, tires crunched on the gravel, and then they were gone. 2 cars rolling down the path, dust trailing behind like some last desperate attempt to keep themselves visible. After the dust settled, the house felt larger. Empty rooms aren't empty, they're expectant. Maya leaned into Darius, into the man who'd finally said go. He held her like someone learning to be steady, his arms loose, apologetic. They stood on the porch for a long minute, just breathing as if checking the tide on each other. I stayed where I was, anchored to the top step. The porch smelled like lemon oil and old wood. I felt tired in a way that wound up past my bones. For a while, the plan was to walk inside and start the cleanup, trash left behind, food stains on counters, the little betrayal of their footprints all over the place. Then, late that night, after the house had finally gone quiet and the cicadas hummed like a far-off radio, Maya sat at the kitchen table with her laptop open. The glow from the screen made sharp shadows under her eyes. She tapped, scrolled, and then her face scrunched like something had been pulled tight. "Dad," she said, voice small. "Look at this." On the screen, the account activity showed a login from an IP address, Nate's IP. The one tied to Delilah's son's phone, and the truck's mobile hotspot. The billing had been rerouted, the service address assigned to Darius's old apartment, and a chain of small petty charges had been run through Maya's accounts in the name of temporary family expenses. It wasn't just greed, it was strategy. Move the lines on this map, shuffle the bills to look like contribution, build a paper trail of investment that can be used to claim equitable interest. Dirty bookkeeping, masquerading as kindness. I closed my eyes and tasted that quiet anger that lives low in a man as he remembers the miles he missed. Then I rubbed my palms together and looked at Maya. "Tomorrow," I said, and my voice had the kind of clarity that didn't invite argument. "We go to the bank." She nodded, jaw set, and for the first time that night, there was no tremor in her hand when she closed the laptop. The house around us was full of echoes.
Laughter that used to belong to better times, footprints that would fade, and the small relief of a family finally looking at one another and seeing the truth. Outside, somewhere down the gravel road, the night swallowed the tracks they left behind. We went inside to stack the receipts, to photograph the invoices, to lock the boxes. Paperwork, boring and righteous, became the new armor. Maya and I moved through the kitchen like two partners learning old steps. We cleaned not just the countertops, but the trust between us. I walked out to the porch one last time before turning in, looking at the stars. I thought about the choices people make when they think they can take what isn't theirs. I thought about fathers and daughters, about second chances bought with small fortunes and a lot of stubbornness. Tomorrow the bank. Tomorrow the paper trails would be traced. Tomorrow we'd start cutting the last strings they'd tied to her life. Tonight, though, I stood on the porch and let the evening breathe into me. The house was still hers. That truth, solid as the foundation beneath our feet, was all the light I needed.
Morning came soft and honest. The kind of morning that smells like coffee and second chances. The house looked smaller in the daylight, emptier but lighter. Sunlight reached corners that had been hidden for weeks. I watched Maya at the kitchen table, her laptop open. Her eyes focused in a way I hadn't seen since before the storm. She moved like someone reclaiming space, one click at a time. First, we froze her credit: Experian, Equifax, TransUnion. 3 new passwords, 3 new locks. Then we filled out the FTC identity theft affidavit line by line. Maya's hands shook at first, but I steadied her wrist. "They don't get to write your story," I said. "You do." When the last signature hit the page, she exhaled like she'd set down a heavy stone. Meanwhile, Jenkins worked like a machine. By noon, he'd emailed us a demand letter addressed to the Kings, clean, precise, no emotion, just law. Reimbursement of $1.140 for unauthorized expenditures. Failure to remit within 10 business days will result in civil proceedings for damages and restitution. At the bottom, he'd added a small note just for us. P.S. You did everything right. Stay steady, stay factual. Let truth be your posture. That line stuck with me. By early afternoon, Darius came by, not to fight this time, not to beg either. He looked smaller, clean shirt, tired eyes, hands buried in his jacket pockets. "I've been thinking," he said quietly. "I need help." "We do. I called a counselor, someone for family therapy. I want to fix this, Maya." Maya didn't say yes right away. She reached into a drawer and pulled out a single sheet of paper, typed, dated, signed at the bottom. "If we try again," she said calmly, "we start with boundaries." She laid it on the counter. I read it from across the room. "Guests only by written invitation. Stay limited to 48 hours. No overnight without prior agreement. No borrowing cards. No service accounts without consent. All major decisions in writing, both signatures." Darius read it once, then twice, and nodded. "Fair," he said. "More than fair." I saw the way Maya's hands relaxed a little when he said that. Trust doesn't rebuild overnight. It's more like carpentry. One nail at a time. The rest of the day we worked. Not on paperwork, but on the house itself. We stripped the bed, washed the sheets, replaced the curtains. Maya wanted color sage green. She said something soft. We took down the stained tablecloth and went into town to buy a new dining set, round maple, 4 sturdy chairs that didn't wobble. When we got back, I found Earl waiting by his truck, toolbox in hand. "Heard you're fixing up the kitchen," he said. "Figured you could use another pair of old hands." We spent the afternoon building a small baking counter under the kitchen window, just wide enough for a stand mixer and a tray of cooling pies. Maya's dream had always been a home bakery, Carter pies and pastries, something quiet but hers. By the time we finished, the sun was sliding low, painting the yard gold. The kitchen smelled like sawdust and coffee. Earl leaned on his cane, grinning. "Looks solid, James." "So's she," I said. He nodded. "You did right by her." I didn't answer. Sometimes the right thing costs more than you planned. When Earl left, the mailbox flag was up. I walked out to check it, expecting another bill or court notice, but inside was a small, hand-addressed envelope.
No return label, but I recognized the handwriting immediately. Delilah King. I stood on the porch for a long minute before I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of lined paper, written in careful cursive. Mr. Carter. I won't make excuses. I crossed a line. I hurt your daughter. I've caused damage I can't undo. I am sorry for that. Enclosed is a money order covering part of what we owe. It isn't enough, but it's what I can do right now. No buts, just truth. Delilah. That was all. No rationalization, no manipulation, no but. Just a flat confession written in ink that had blotted in a few places, maybe from shaking hands. I stared at it for a long time. Then I folded it carefully, slid it back into the envelope, and set it on the mantel. Maya found me standing there, the note still in my hand. What is it? She asked. Just words, I said softly. But the right kind. She smiled faintly. Maybe that's how healing starts. I smiled back, but as I turned to walk away, a sharp pain flared in my chest like a fist closing inside my ribcage. Not enough to drop me, but enough to make me grip the edge of the counter until the room steadied. Maya noticed, of course. Dad, you okay? I forced a smile, brushing it off. Just old bones and bad coffee, I said. Go preheat that oven, girl. Let's see if that apple pie recipe still works. She laughed softly and turned to the counter. Her sleeves rolled up the world, looking new again. I stood behind her, one hand pressed over the ache in my chest, the other on the back of a kitchen chair, steadying myself. The smell of cinnamon filled the room. Outside, the trees leaned in the wind, whispering like witnesses, and for the first time in a long while, I let myself believe we might actually be okay, at least for tonight. It's been a month since the dust settled, and this morning the yard smells like peaches and sugar. We built a little stand out back, just 2 tables under a faded white canopy, a chalkboard sign that reads, Carter's Corner Pies every Saturday. Maya painted the letters herself, neat but crooked in that charming way that makes people stop their cars. The first week we sold 3 pies, the next 10. Now we sell out before noon. Earl's pickup is always the first to pull in. He brings his folding chair and his old stories sets up near the fence like the honorary town greeter. Deputy Wells stops by around 10, uniform crisp badge catching the light. She always buys peach cobbler, 2 slices, one for her cousin. Darius works the lemonade stand beside the pie table, sleeves rolled up, grin honest. He doesn't talk much, but he moves, steady, pours, drinks, wipes tables, checks in with Maya like a man who's finally learning the language of partnership instead of pride. Sometimes I watch him out of the corner of my eye and think, maybe that's what redemption looks like. Quiet, unadvertised, earned day by day. Delilah keeps her distance now. Court order still stands. But last week the mailman brought another envelope with her handwriting soft, unsure this time. Inside was a note, no money order, no excuses, just a single line. When you're ready to talk, I'll meet you somewhere neutral. Maybe a cafe somewhere with pie. Maya read it once, folded it neatly, and placed it back in the envelope. Maybe later, she said. Right now, I just want to breathe. And I understood. Some wounds don't close with contact. They close with time. By noon, the sun sits high and the backyard hums with laughter. A couple of neighbors sit at the picnic table wiping peach juice from their chins. Earl tells some story about his time in the Marines, making everyone laugh until their sides ache.
Maya walks out with a tray of mini apple pies, her apron dusted with flour, hair pulled back, eyes bright. She's not the same woman who cried at that kitchen sink. She's lighter now, not because life got easier, but because she learned how to carry it. I sit on my wooden chair near the porch, the one that creaks in all the right places, and watch sunlight scatter across the yard. My hands, old, rough, and scarred, feel lighter than they have in years. That's the thing about living long enough, about making it past 50. You learn that dignity isn't loud. It's quiet, worn, soft, like denim, tough, like oak. It's not about fighting every battle. It's about knowing which ones deserve your breath. People talk about justice like it's a hammer. But the sweetest justice I've ever seen is the kind that rebuilds instead of breaks. The kind that makes the people who hurt you have to watch you live well.
Not to shame them, but to remind them what decency looks like when it refuses to die. Maya sends me a picture from her phone near closing time, the chalkboard sign with the word "sold out" scrawled across it in pink chalk. In the photo, she's standing beside Darius, both of them laughing, their arms around each other, faces open to the sun. I stare at that image longer than I should. Then I whisper to the air, almost like a prayer, the sweetest pie is peace. The wind moves through the trees like an answer. A moment later, that familiar tightness curls in my chest, sharp but manageable. I press my palm against it just to feel it, to remind myself I'm still here. Maya notices from the kitchen window worry flickering across her face. I wave it off with a smile. "I'm fine, baby," I call out. "Go count your cash drawer. I'll tell you about my doctor's appointment next week." She laughs, shakes her head, goes back inside. I stay seated, the sun dipping lower now, turning the porch rails gold. Sometimes I think about all the years I tried to protect her from everything, except the truth that even the strongest heart can wear thin. Maybe it's time she knew that too. Next week I'll tell her, because raising a strong woman means teaching her that strength and honesty live in the same house, the same way peace and justice do. I close my eyes, let the late light warm my face, and breathe in the scent of baked apples drifting through the window. It smells like forgiveness.
You know, people think justice is loud, a courtroom, a shouting match, someone losing. But the older I get, the more I realize justice can be quiet. It's a woman baking pies in her own kitchen again, smiling without fear. It's peace settling over a home that was once full of shouting. I didn't win anything that day. I just gave my daughter back what she'd lost: her voice, her space, her dignity. And maybe that's enough. If you're still watching, tell me in the comments, what does justice look like to you? Because for me, the sweetest revenge was never about payback. It was watching my little girl stand tall again in the house I built for her, with her head high and peace in her heart.